dilettantes. Great to be with you again. This is this is not a podcast for everyone, but this is this is a podcast for your fathers, brothers, uncles, cousins, former roommate. Great to be with you again. Um, and we've got some great stuff to cover. Kind of all tied together actually this week. Some of the things that we're talking about. It started off with a story that I'd seen earlier this week of folks that are just upset because the prices at a Dollar Tree have gone up to $1.25. And I'm not sure I can hear you, sweetheart. So prices went up to $1.25 and people were reacting to that. And it's the kind of reaction, honestly, that I'm not sure makes sense to me. People were saying, I'm not happy. This does not, capital letters, not, does not sit right with me. Calamity makes me sick to my stomach. This is the kind of stuff that people were saying online. And I just thought, now, wait a minute. At a time when gas prices are now, and this came out this morning, the Lundberg survey said of gasoline, the average price of a gallon of gasoline in the United States is currently $3.40. Now, that's the average. In some places, it's higher. And I'm not sure. I understand that people are upset about the higher prices. I'm not sure that attacking Dollar Tree or criticizing them is necessarily the right approach.
No, because I think it's like everything where everything's just starting to cost just a little bit more money, and unfortunately, the Dollar Tree, just like every other business has to, or the Dollar General, has to, do business just like every place else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what they've got to do. And if they're able to raise their prices to $1.25 versus, I mean, honestly, would you rather it was $1.50 or $1.75 or $2? I mean, that sadly, that's kind of the road we're on with the prices that are going up. Seeing that in a lot of different sectors right now.
I know I'm happy just to be able to get stuff still at the dollar store for a dollar or close there too, because I mean, heck, you go to the dollar store to try and save some money. And if it's close to a dollar, it's good enough for me.
Yeah, and I feel kind of the same way in regard to that. Um, I understand that people are being pressed right now, no question about that. There are a lot of things that are going on in the country right now. It's not the Dollar Tree is out to alienate their customers. Far from it. They're having to respond to higher prices just like everybody else is, unfortunately.
Oh, and it's just harder to get stuff too right now. I mean, I know I've ordered some parts. I ordered them last September. They were supposed to be in February. Now they're supposed to be in May. Oh, maybe June, I think I might get them. So it's almost 9 months after I ordered them.
That's actually quite a long time to have to wait for something. I would agree, and you've been very, very patient about that. I'm
And
not sure I'd be quite so patient.
they're necessary parts for a kayaking setup, and you just can't get them from any place. And I look everywhere online, sold out absolutely everywhere. Heck, I can't even go on eBay and find them, which is pretty sad because normally you can find some resellers on eBay, but man, I couldn't even find stuff on eBay.
Yeah. Yeah, it is difficult when you can't find something on eBay. Absolutely. Totally read you. So people are a little uptight about high prices right now, and that's understandable. Hopefully, we're going to see some relief from that soon. At least we hope. But that's the way things stand. There was also a story this week about a woman who went viral because she showed off her tattoos in a company headshot, encouraged to do so by her boss. And it really kind of shows how our attitudes have changed in regard to tattoos because it wasn't very long ago you wouldn't have even dreamed of showing that in a company headshot. And this was on LinkedIn, which is a professional website
Right.
used by a lot of people. Yeah.
It's one of those things I think though that's just changed over time. I mean, 15, 20 years ago, it would have been like, clutch your pearls. Here's somebody showing tattoos. You would have made assessments about them and, stereotyped them and stuff like that. But that's not the case anymore. I mean, people, I think tattoos just because, or tattoos in general have just become so commonplace that, um, they don't have that negative stigma they used to. I mean, you've got high-end business executives, obviously, who are wearing this because if I remember right, that gal was an accountant or something like that, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
Yep,
And she was encouraged to do so by her boss. It was her boss that said, "No, don't be afraid to show the tattoos
right,
and post that photo on LinkedIn."
right. And I think it's great though that that culture's changing just a little bit where that's more acceptable. I mean, I know personally I don't have any tattoos. That comes down to my lack of ability to be able to make decisions. I'm I mean, Greg's gone out
That
to
is that can be a problem. Yeah.
Greg's gone out to dinner with me enough to know that if I don't start selecting something prior to us getting there, we could be there. But
I just start ordering because they're like, "Do you wanna wait?" I'm like, "No, if we don't order, she won't." So I've just gotta order.
but yeah, I think it's really good though that, we're getting to a point where people can just kind of, be able to express themselves like that. It's not just like you're not just assuming the worst of a person because they've got tattoos. And if I remember seeing the pictures correctly, they're quite tasteful and
Oh, absolutely. She's
very well
actually
done.
I thought she looked, I mean, she looked very professional. She's a very pretty woman, that the story followed, and I thought, "Hey, it looks great." Now, will it look great in 40 years? Will it look great in 50 years? I think that's one of the big hesitations among others that I have had, um, have hesitated about getting them. I've never honestly, it's just something that's never appealed to me, and you and I have watched a lot of we've watched Ink Masters, we've watched some of the other shows, and it's an incredible art form, I think, don't you?
Absolutely, and I mean, the people who do that artwork are just phenomenal artists. I mean, we've seen some that, maybe aren't so great, but I mean, the vast majority of the people, I mean,
They weed those people out. Yeah.
they truly have a passion for it. So I mean, they understand the repercussions of doing good and bad work because it's not like, me scribbling on my tablet in the evening. It's that's a permanent thing.
Yeah, and most of them remarkably well done. I'm always impressed at what people are able to do and, the pain that people are able to tolerate. I'm not so sure I'd be crying for my mommy if I were under the needle, I think, but, um, hers, I thought, were very tastefully done. I understand that times are changed, and it would be different if they were offensive tattoos, you know?
Yeah.
Her tattoos are not offensive really in any way other than she's got tattoos.
Right. And that really just looks at the point of look, she's just like everybody else. She
Yep.
carries a job. She holds down takes care of her business. Big deal. She's got some ink, but more power to her. I was
Sh
gonna say I put out in the chat what prices or what things people are sad to go up, and Laura's sad to see her candy bars go up in price more. I mean, it's bad when chocolate goes up.
Oh, don't mention chocolate. I'm I'm trying to diet right now, and, oh, it is so hard. I have such a craving for that stuff. So we're talking about this woman and her, tattoo. She was encouraged to display it by her boss, and she said she talked about the fact and forgive me, I'm looking for this. She talked about the fact that she went to a women's conference. It was a professional women's conference, and she said, um, she
If I remember right,
is
wasn't she got some looks from people at that,
she did.
um,
Absolutely.
which was sad.
Yeah, she said she felt that way, especially when she went to a women's conference and received some comments at dinner. She said, I find it a little surprising. I came without a jacket on, and that's when the conversation turned. I thought that's weird. We just came out of a conference talking about women empowerment, and now I'm kinda being told that I can't be a leader because of my tattoos. So those comments were coming from other women who were saying this to her.
Yeah, and I think you're gonna always get other comments from other women who are judge women can be judgmental sometimes, and it's kinda sad, especially to see that in an environment like that where it's supposed to be they're supposed to be building each other up, and this poor lady's getting kinda knocked down where that shouldn't be the case. I mean, she should be welcomed. I mean, heck, everybody else is taking a going out on a limb and, doing stuff that's a little more different nowadays, and that kinda goes into why we had kinda wrapped this all up in these times they are changing. Um, it should be something that's a little more open and people are a little more welcoming of. So I mean, heck, like you said, her boss encouraged her to. So, I mean, I think it's kinda in the eye of the beholder what's acceptable and what's not acceptable anymore. But
Yeah, it would have to be pretty outrageous, I think, before I would get to and I'm talking about in your face offensive kind of
oh,
stuff.
absolutely. Um, but, people are gonna people, and people are gonna have opinions,
Right.
but what do you do?
Absolutely. What's the old line about pornography? I don't know. I know it when I see it, that kind of thing. So, like with this, you know when it's gone too far, it's over the line. Yeah, I know it when I see it. Yeah, absolutely. But
Yep,
that was a pretty interesting story, and I give that woman credit for what she's doing. And again, she was encouraged by her male boss who said, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Show it." He was fully supportive. And it's nice to work for someone who encourages you that way.
absolutely. I know, one other thing we had seen when we were kinda looking through different 'cause that's one thing with the show is we kinda look at what are some trends and what's going on around lately, and one of the other ones I think we'd seen, was it's so hard to get people I mean, employers right now are at such a hardship trying to get people in the door to work, right? And I think
Right.
you found this where it was this, guy had found some, ended up having to use profanity in a sign to just try and get people in the door or something like
Yeah,
that, or what was
just to
that?
get them to apply, trying to get them to apply. So we used profanity, and it's profanity I wouldn't repeat. I mean, it was really like, okay, yeah, that's profanity. You would agree. That's definitely profanity. And he used it in his sign, and I thought, well, isn't it sad that that's what you have to do in order to get enough attention? Because he made national news and that's a sad commentary on the times when those are the lengths you have to go to in order to find people who are willing to work.
'Cause if I remember right, didn't he work in, like, a delivery business for, like, paper napkins and stuff like
I
I remember
I I don't recall, honestly. I wish I had that story in front of me. Of all the stories
uh,
I've got, that one I don't have.
but I mean, I've heard businesses here locally, I mean, I can go get a job at Taco John's making $16 an hour. Um,
Right.
and yeah, they'd absolutely deserve that, but I can remember when I started my first full-time job, I was lucky to make $11 an hour, and that really was only about 15 years ago. So, it's crazy how that has changed over time and that, um, you gotta pay more people or you gotta pay more to get people in the door. Um,
Well, and
and
it's
then just
sad that even though you're paying those people more, then they don't stay. They're there, people would just walk out. They decide, oh, they don't like it. I can go somewhere else and just leave. And I'm like, what? That would be incredibly difficult as an employer to be
right.
in that kind of situation. I think.
Yeah, it's definitely employees market right now.
Agreed.
Definitely can get I mean, I know for what I do part-time, and they offer flexible scheduling and everything, you pick your shifts, whole 9, and I mean, I know that's one thing that got me in the door for a part-time job was for that, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
You shouldn't it's kinda funny when you gotta basically shake somebody and be like, "Come here, get a bleeping job and come apply." So,
And there's some of that that's gone too. I mean, and people who just jump from one job to another.
right.
And that's so different from when I grew up, is you just didn't do that.
No.
You wanted to hold on to a job. I think of my dad, from the time that he was 18 years old until the time that he retired, he worked at one place his entire life. He worked there. Now he worked several different jobs there, and he moved up over the years. But he worked for one employer. He was there the entire time. Loyalty was very, very important to him. You just don't see that anymore.
No, it's really about I think the job market's kind of shifted. And again, these are just my opinions, but I think that job market's really shifted where it's what's in it for me. And I think employers are really starting to take a look at when they're hiring people. What am I doing for that employee? It's really got to be employee centered to try and get those people to come in the door and stay there for any length of time. It's incentivizing it for the employee, which is it's almost like a 180. It used to be we're hiring you to do a job, but now it's please come here. We have all these benefits. We'll work with anything you got. So it's really a shift. Good shift, bad shift. I suppose only time will tell, but
Well, I think some of that is good for both employers and
yes.
employees. Some of that is definitely good.
But it kind of goes back to our Dollar Tree story. I mean, you definitely got to start paying people more because cost of living just has gone up. I mean, especially if you've got the
Yeah.
Dollar Tree who hasn't had anything at the store over a dollar for what years is now going stuff to $1.50 and whatnot. So yeah, it paying people higher wages and just kind of shaking people loose to get them to come in the door is kind of where we're at right
These times are changing.
now. If it wasn't for the DMCA rules on YouTube, I'd probably have Bob Dylan playing in the background right now. Because Lord knows you don't want me to sing.
Nor me. Nor me.
I'm I'm the person they tell you to quiet in church.
it, it wasn't that bad for me, I guess, but
I know we've looked at some pretty serious topics to roll off the show. Let's move into something just a little lighter. What do you say? How about we,
absolutely.
as you can see from the room in the background behind Greg there, he obviously is a big Batman fan. Um, I'm kind of a bit of a geek in that I do like a lot of things technology. Well, one of the things I started getting into, I don't know, summer, got to have projects to do, is retro gaming. And
I love it, which I love.
so you go on YouTube, just like everything else. I watch 3 YouTube videos. I'm instantly expert on everything, right? So,
No,
no?
no,
Okay,
you do watch a lot of YouTube, and you've learned a lot through YouTube.
right. So we made a retro Pi. I think, what do we call it? The retro Piolator. Anyway, it's Raspberry Pi. You can load up with ROMs. Found out that didn't work so well. Moved to an Android TV box, which didn't work as well. Now I think we need to go back to the retro
Now,
Pi and the Raspberry Pi.
why do you think that we need to go back to the retro Pi? Why didn't you like the other one?
The Android box,
Yes.
I don't like it because the launcher and the emulator that's available for the Raspberry Pi is a lot easier to work with, and it actually works with more games. Um, we it's been an interesting thing to learn about emulators, ROMs, everything like that. I still can't figure out MAME if I wanted to. Can run it on the computer, can't run it on the retro Pi, but that'll be a work in progress. But one of the interesting things we started doing when I got these built, Raspberry Pis, for those of you who don't know, are little computers that you
And they're
basically
small.
nope. Yeah, I mean they're basically the size of a 3x5 card. And then you build them yourself, which are very, very easy. I mean, you have them built in like 10 minutes. And then go and load, Linux on there, and then we put some other stuff on there. But it was fun to start looking through like games that we wanted to put on it. And I know you just were tickled pink when we started looking at ROMs. Now, one thing with ROMs is we can't tell you where they got them because that's just not something you can do on the YouTube. But what was the one ROM you had to have on that game or on that system?
The problem was you started showing them to me, and I'm like, "Oh, oh yeah, gotta have that. Oh, gotta get that one." And some of those are not as good as I remembered, and others, I don't know if I could pick out one that I've gotta have, but, with the one that you and I have had enjoyed the most, had the most fun playing, Mario Kart.
Absolutely. Mario Kart. I mean, how many times didn't you remember getting together with your family or at family get
Yep.
togethers and stuff like that? And everybody sits down and plays Mario Kart. And, you just try to beat the person in front of you or your family members. And during the whole time, you're sitting and yelling at each other. You're waiting for a fight to break out amongst the kids. I can remember a few tense Mario Kart sessions with some friends growing up, but it's a blast. I mean, I haven't played that game in over 20 years myself.
Yeah, and I love that game. And you and I had great fun playing those games.
Well, and the other reason I like the game personally, it's the only one I have a snowball's chance in heck of actually beating you at.
And did. And you did, yeah. I was having difficulty beating you on that game. You were doing I'm like, "Oh, you were behind me, and then suddenly you're in front of me." I'm like, "I don't know what in the world just happened."
What do you do? But yeah, it's definitely it's a work in progress. We're going back to the retro pie though, definitely. But like everything else, they're really hard to get right now. They're back ordered for at least a
Yeah.
couple of months. Um, you had but I think retro games is something we'll talk about probably a little bit more going on, because you and I both enjoy retro games, and I know when I first got Mario up and running, I'm terrible at Mario, but I'm just like, hee hee hee, I got Mario up and running. Um, and we might show you the system when we get around to it, and it would be it's definitely something Greg can kick my butt at just about everything
Well,
else.
and I loved the controllers that we bought because they were like Super Nintendo controllers,
Yeah, yep.
which I'm used to because I played on Super Nintendo, and so I love the controllers, and that just holding those in my hand, it's like there's just a warm feeling, just sitting down to play, regardless
So
of what game, it is.
those controllers we found, they're actually just a little bit nicer than the old Super Nintendo controllers because they feel more like a PS4 controller too because they've got the hand
Yeah,
grips
they
on them.
do.
I think they're made by a company called 8-Bit Dough or something along those lines. Did you Well, yeah, we'll definitely cover more retro gaming in the future. How about you got anything from the Batcave?
Oh, from the Cave of Wonders. That's what we're gonna start calling this segment, the Cave of Wonders, with all that we have. And you took some photos. One of the toys that I remember having when I was a kid was I remembered having a Batman hand puppet made by Ideal in the 1960s. And mine, as you can see, I've got a couple now. I've got both Batman and Robin. That Robin, by the way, I paid through the nose for that to find that. He was hard. He was difficult to find. The Batman ones are fairly easy to find. Mine is in incredible shape. Those bodies are made of vinyl, and they're not ripped, they're not torn, they're clean. They just look absolutely awesome. But I had one when I was a kid, and mine, of course, what happens when you play with them a lot is that rubber head comes off the vinyl body, and the vinyl rips or tears, and you wind up with, and I had that rubber Batman head for the longest time when I was a kid. So that was one of the things that I really wanted was to get both the Batman and Robin. They were made by the Ideal Toy Company in the 60s. Um, and I that piece in particular is one that for me just really brings back a lot of childhood memories.
Now, did you have them as a set when you were a kid, or did you just have
No,
just
no,
Robin?
Yeah, there's a Joker that goes along with those,
Yep.
and there was at the time, you could actually buy Ideal made a puppet theater, so for them, so you could, have a box basically, you could build one yourself, but actually had a Batman theater, they called it. Um, Pretty cool stuff for me.
Because if I remember right, you said you also found one that was in the package one.
Yes, and I have that. That's tucked away, but I have one still in the plastic with um, the header card that the toys came on. These obviously are loose, so they don't have any packaging, but I do have one that's still in the original package, and then I have another Batman one that I had bought some years ago that actually has a cloth body. And I like the vinyl better. The vinyl stays cleaner, it's sharper, it looks better. The cloth ones just they age a lot more. And so they look worn, especially if they have been used by kids, so they look worn out. And the thing I like about these vinyl ones is they're still bright, still absolutely look terrific.
So,
Those toys are older than I am, and they look better than I do too.
well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's not hard.
What do you got for Batman news this week, Greg? What's the quick
Well,
rundown?
I've got a little bit that I will share. The director of the Batman. By the way, they came out with a new about a 2.5 minute trailer of the Batman, which just came out, and I watched it. What, last night? Did I watch that last night? You
Yeah, I
you had
think it
sent
was
it to
last
me.
night. Yep.
Yeah, I watched it last night, and the star of the movie, forgive me, his name has slipped my mind at the moment.
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, Robert Pattinson doesn't say a word in that whole trailer. So it's 2.5 minutes. You don't hear him say a word. Certainly see him. You see his reactions. Um, but it's 2.5 minutes long. So if you are so inclined, you can go out and find that. I thought it looked very intriguing. Excited about it, actually.
I'll actually put the link in the chat so that if people are want to watch it, you can grab it.
Yeah, great idea. And then Matt Reeves is saying, this is director Matt Reeves. He is saying that the Batman, he said, is almost a horror movie. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. We were just learned that the film got PG-13 rating instead of an R rating. I don't know. It's kind of hard now to turn around and try to bill it as intense as a horror film. That's what he's trying to say, apparently.
I've I was gonna say we just talked about that last week, in fact, how it
Yes, we
only had a
did.
PG-13 and some people were actually upset that it only had a PG-13 rating because they
Yeah.
wanted more violence and
And
gratuitous violence.
now he's saying we're 6 weeks away from the Batman coming to theaters, and he is billing it that it's almost a horror movie.
Hmm, interesting.
One of the other stories that's been out there about is the runtime of the movie. It's nearly 3 hours long. Now that you know what? If it's great, don't care if it's 3 hours long. If it's good, it because if it's good, the time will fly. You won't notice the time if it's good. If it's terrible, oh, 3 hours is going to be a painfully long time.
It is a drag if it's 3 hours and it's slow.
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes. But those are the big Batman stories from the week.
And if I found a link, I think, just late this weekend or something. They're coming out with a new Batman game. We might have to go check that out and maybe bring that around next week.
Yeah, you did send that to me. And it looked fun. It's a card game kind of thing, and I haven't played cards in the longest time.
So is it like card games like 52 pickup or poker, or is it card games
52
like
pickup. Yeah, yeah, you can only get me with that once.
or is it card games like probably
My
more
old
like
man asked me that, "Hey, 52, you wanna play 52 pickup?" You can see my dad doing that, can't you?
Uh, well, I got a random fact for you for this evening, Greg. And this one was inspired by my niece. She had texted me last week after watching her show, and she's like, "Hey, she was close. She was close on the facts. I had to do a little more research than that. So you've got a toque, chefs, right? That's the hat they wear, called a toque
Yes.
or a toque, something like that. I'm gonna
Toque.
toque. There you go. Apparently, I
Yeah,
didn't.
because I know that because of the Mackenzie brothers and the Great White North back in the day, wearing their toques, eh?
I was gonna say, did you rewatch Ratatouille? Maybe I don't know.
No.
Anyway, the original. So they have pleats in those hats, and the origins of the pleats in the chef's hat similar to the height. In the early days of the toque, it was actually called a toque blanche, toque white. It was the number of pleats would often represent how many techniques or how many recipes the chef had mastered. For example, a chef would have 100 pleats, and his hat represented 100 ways he could prepare eggs. So, there you go. So, you want to look for a chef that has a lot of pleats in his toque.
That's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
All
It's
right.
quite random, but I am the bringer of random facts, and if there's a random fact out there, I will bring it.
I wish you hadn't made me think of the Mackenzie brothers. Because now I'm thinking I should have opened the show with "Ooh, look, go, 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 go."
Next thing
Ooh,
you,
look, go, 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 go.
because they were on CTV, weren't they?
SCTV, yeah.
Yeah, SCTV.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes, I
I
remember.
was a big fan of SCTV back in the days.
But
You are way too young for that. But oh
this-
yeah, the Mackenzie brothers, and I still have their first album that they put out like in 1981, 2. I think it was maybe around 1982.
I was gonna say this is dumb, but what I remember hearing them from is there's the Disney movie Brother Bear.
Yes.
They're the moose
Yeah.
in Brother Bear. They do I forget the moose. Yeah, I always want to say Misa's name, but the mice.
Believe me, it surprises me that they were able to keep those characters alive for that long.
But yeah,
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight or letting us join you. We appreciate it. Hope you'll be back again next Monday night. Um, so long until then, same bad time, same bad channel.
thanks for joining us, and remember, like, subscribe, share this video. It helps us out on
Please.
the algorithm, and subscribe buttons down there.